Welcome to We Sing the Bass Electric, a podcast for bass lovers and music enthusiasts of all genres. Join us as we revisit some of the most iconic recordings from different bassists, past and present, discussing behind-the-scene insight and stories that made up some of the most revered albums of our time, all from a bass player's point of view. Now here's your host, international recording artist, Mr. Christian de Mesones, aka Big New York.
Hello, everybody. How are you today? This is Christian de Mesones, host of We Sing the Bass Electric. I wanted to let everyone know that this is going to be the final episode of season 1. We're ending it on a high note with the legendary Rudy Sarzo. And I want to thank everyone who has subscribed to the YouTube channel, who have definitely helped me try to achieve this goal this year. We are coming back next year, bigger and better. I'll have more of a diversity of artists, and we'll not only do hard rock, but we'll start doing R&B, funk, and jazz artists. So I'm just hoping that you guys hang in with me. We're also going to make sure that our audio is better. Anyway, next season, we'll have a bunch of great new artists coming your way. I think you'll be very excited and pleased to see who's going to be on board. I've had so much fun reliving and revisiting some of my early bass heroes, especially growing up in Brooklyn in the 70s and listening to hard rock and heavy metal. It's been a blast speaking to some of these great guys. So hang in there with me. We'll post our very first episode 1, season 2 in February. Okay. Thank you so much for all your support. It's been a really, really great year for me personally and musically. Okay. Thanks. So here we go with Rudy Sarzo. I do want to tell you that I'm excited to be here with you because you and I do have history. I mean, I will never forget the moment when I was right in the front of the stage at L'Amour's when
L'Amour's, yeah.
when you blew the power out, man, on "Love's a Bitch," and that was one of my favorite songs, and I was so bummed out that the power went out, man. But I don't know if you remember that. That was '83, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, those were the days. See, what happened was when we did L'Amour's, we were on tour. I think it would have opening up. What month was that? Do you have any recollection?
I think it was March. I think it was March of '83.
It was March. Okay, if it was March, probably opening up for ZZ Top. But anyways, we were just doing. We would play clubs in the days off of the arena headliner. Let's say we were touring, opening up for ZZ Top, and they would have a day off. We booked that day, and we played. So what I'm saying is that we had our complete arena backline with us.
Yeah.
And which in a club situation, it's not very practical, but it makes for a good look on stage.
Yeah, absolutely.
In a club, having that full stage, Nowadays I just use one SVT cab with one head, an 810, and that's all I need. Back in the day, everything that was on stage was plugged in.
Now I have a question for you about that moment. I don't remember this. Did you actually bring an 8-string bass with you on tour on that? You did?
Okay. That's exactly what I was playing on that song, an 8-string Washburn bass. Yeah.
Washburn. So do you have any idea how the fuse blew? What happened with the power? Did anybody ever explain
probably,
to you?
At the time I was using like 3 Crown DC 300s, and Carlos had a bunch of Marshall heads, I'm pretty sure, and then you have to pump up the monitor system to match that, in the backline. So I'm pretty sure that we just blew fuses according to that we were overpowering the system. Yeah.
It was a great moment. I'll never forget it, my friend. I'll never forget it. Thank you, Rudy, for joining us at We Sing the Bass Electric. So here's your first question. Who was some of your early musical influences, and was the electric bass your first instrument of choice?
Early influences. You when you mentioned the name of the show, we sing the bass electric. What came immediately to mind was Weather Report, which pre-Jacko, they had an album with that. I sang the Body Electric, which I think is a Kurt Vonnegut book, one of those
Yes.
60s writers. And those titles really fell on my deaf ears back then without the understanding of, I'm studying quantum physics, and now I get, about frequencies and waves, which is what we are made out of, But back then, that was just a title of a sci-fi, book for me,
Yeah.
And so, being said that, Weather Report, especially Jacko, I grew up in Miami, and Jacko was like the local hero, which was two things. It was very inspiring and very scary. It goes inspiring because here I am watching Jacko play around the clubs in Miami and full, North Miami Beach, which is what the big hub. Even though he was teaching at the University of Miami, so he would play in the afternoons. They have like these, campus little cafes and restaurants, like shops that they would sell subs for the students, sandwich shops, right?
Yeah.
And then the Jacko will play with the Ira Sullivan Band, which was a jazz band. Ira played reeds, and they would be like, like a combo, very small group, And so I'll go and grab a sandwich and watch Jacko play,
Yeah.
But I thought it was logical for me to think, well, there's gotta be about 1,000 Jackos out there that I never heard of. So this is like what the measuring stick was to, if you really want to get into the music industry, that's how good you have to be. And to be honest with you, I didn't have the resources that I have now for learning. I mean, if you really want to get an education in music without, at home on Zoom, there's plenty of those around.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, you can go on YouTube and there's like a whole course, a whole semester of music theory given by a professor. He just sets up a camera and then he puts that up on YouTube for whoever wants to learn,
Yeah.
And I recommend that you follow the actual course. Don't jump around, and don't miss the details, the links. It's like a chain. You got the links. You have to have all the links together to make that whole chain. You just don't have, if you're missing links, you don't have a chain anymore. And then again, there's always Rick Beato. I just wanted to mention that Rick Beato, Everything Music, and he's been an incredible source of inspiration and of actual education for me. Now, I just want to cap this question by saying that I recommend everybody to learn as much as you can until you reach the point that you're beginning to become enlightened. And that to me is where I'm entering that phase, that I've learned so much. I have so much information that I can actually have small triggers as I'm playing that will take me on that I will get to teach myself, because I discover a self-discovery of music theory, how things work in music, and that's the point that I'm on right now. But to get there, it's taken me years and years and years of actually absorbing information.
So the bass was your first instrument, or was the guitar your first instrument?
No, my first instrument was the maracas.
The maracas. Okay.
When I was a baby, being Cuban, when you're born, they throw percussion instruments in your cradle and just leave you alone and you figure it out. Yeah. And it's percussion is at the heart of my culture. And I grew when I was a very, very young child, I would say about maybe 5 years old. I was living in Havana, and this is in the 50s. So I would say 1955. My birthday is tomorrow. August
Oh, happy
71. Yeah, I
birthday,
was
man.
born.
Happy
Thank you.
birthday.
Thank you. I was born in 1950, and we're talking about 1950s cars made out of everything was made out of some kind of a material, iron, steel, chrome, whatever, and there was no plastic on the cars. So the kids in the neighborhood, the social network was gathering around a car, and with like pennies or quarters, just start playing rhythms on each part of the car, on the hood, on the bumpers, the hubcaps,
Uh,
you know, everywhere. Each part of the car had a different sound to that. So before you knew it, you had like 10 kids doing that. That's how they communicated. And that's how I would go to sleep at night, every night, just with that sound. Plus, my mom and dad would always take my brother and me to events. We never had a babysitter, and they loved to listen to music, so they would take us in Havana to anywhere, to see the local bands like Benny Moré, Orquesta Aragon, Celia Cruz,
yeah.
Rolando La Serie. I grew up with that music. So percussion, even though I am not a percussionist, and I really respect and love great percussionists that I play with, I do tend to play in a percussive manner, rhythm section, you know. And it's funny because it wasn't until later on in my rock and roll career that I realized that I wasn't playing metronomic. I was just playing with the tumbao, in between, adding the grease.
Okay.
By the time that I was playing with Ozzy, prior to that, 10 years before, when thumping came in, everybody had to play like that. And then disco came in. I was still in Florida at the time. So, that was part of my tool. So when it came time to play songs like, it's gone. I would just
Suicide
play.
Solution.
Suicide Solution. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah,
Okay.
I would just play with my thumb, because I needed that attack. The
Yeah.
finger wasn't going to give it to me. I had to like thump it just to get that cut right through all the Marshalls that Randy was using and Tommy playing so loud and all of that. Yeah.
What's your practice routine like today? I mean, do you practice sight reading scales, any of
No,
that stuff? Do you concentrate on speed
no.
or articulation? What do you do?
Well, right now I'm just exploring. I'm looking at the relationship of all the notes. I'm looking into frequential gravity within music, which the power of the tritone,
Yeah.
leading tones, and using passing chords with tritones that gives you options. It just doesn't a tritone is not going to lead you to just one chord. With a dominant seven, the tritone could become if it's a third, it could become a minor seventh of another chord, and vice versa. If it's a minor seventh, could become the major third of another chord. And below the major third, you got the minor third. So using that, that blues note,
Yeah.
on a dominant chord.
Hey, everything, it's really funny, because when we learn how to play, especially in rock music, in the beginning, you're thinking of patterns, right? You're thinking of like in the block,
Boxes.
right?
Yeah.
You're thinking of
Yeah.
those dots,
Yeah.
you're doing that block riff, those
Yeah.
pentatonic riffs,
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I get you,
That's
man. Definitely.
that's
Definitely.
one thing. Pentatonics, I stopped relying on them,
Mm,
and I'm using more leading tones than anything
okay.
else, because I think that is a little bit more musical and less predictable than a pentatonic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now,
Especially
now,
in rock.
now, superimposing pentatonics, superimposed in position, that I find really, really refreshing to the ear, because then you start getting into the extensions of whatever
Yeah.
chord you're playing. Yeah.
Yeah, man. It's like jazz music. They all deal with extensions, right? We're used to going from the root to the fifth to the octave, and then sometimes the ninth or sometimes the 11th or whatever. But we in rock music we don't always get to use that, so it's cool. Definitely. All right, I have another question for you.
Yeah.
as a for hire bassist, you've had to learn material quickly. Can you share a moment in your career when you had the shortest amount of time to learn a set list and perform it live?
Yeah.
Do you have any memories?
Yeah, it was very simple. Any musician that is working, it started out as a hired musician.
Yeah.
And this is here's the similarity. When you're hired, you're given a set list of already pre-written, pre-recorded songs, because let's say you're either going in the studio and they give you a chart or a sheet and say play this, or you go on tour and they say these are the songs we're going to perform, right? That's not any different when we started out playing in clubs with our buddies before we made it, just as a dance band, a band that was playing at a kegger or playing at your high school auditorium. It's the same thing. So what happens is, if you are like, I could say that you are old enough that you did not start out in tribute bands. You started out probably top 40, right?
Yeah.
Which means that when I started out with my top 40, being, when I started playing top 40 was in the 60s. And you had in the top 40, you had Paul Anka, you're having my Baby, and you had Deep Purple, Smoke on the Water. And you played them both. And in between, you had Sly and the Family Stone, you had the Motown catalog, you had the Beatles, you played everything. So you learn, you walk away with a huge tool set of techniques and listening to music. Listen, the way that the compositions of a Motown song could be very different to, let's say, a Deep Purple or Led Zeppelin or the Beatles at their harmonic compositional height. Like, let's say I Am the Walrus. That song is like, what? When you listen to it, it's a journey. It just keeps changing actually keys, because it's almost like jazz with this like really, really impressionistic outside the box lyrics, it's like, so you're transported. When I hear that song, I'm not here anymore. I'm somewhere else trying to figure out what that means to me today when I listen to that song.
Yeah. Here's another question for you. So over the past 40 years, you have been seen with many different basses. What is your bass collection like these days? And do you have a personal favorite?
Things that happen to be close to me where I'm sitting right here, I can handle things, I can grab them because I'm working on a project. And even though it's a project, for a friend of mine, there's a certain cohesiveness. But then again, each song to me sonically sounds different because, nowadays we do a lot of recording through the internet. So we send, files and stuff, right? So this project is pretty much made up like that. There is, the guitar player is in a different country than the actual person who's doing the project. Me, the bass player, I'm in a different country too. So when we record on our spare time, which means that, it doesn't mean that we're not taking this project seriously. It just means that we're allocating a certain time for different other projects, right? So in this one is like, okay, it's the same band or same project, and they send me these files, and song number 1 sounds completely different sonically than song number 2, and so on, right? So I have to find the bass that sounds correct with that, at least in my vision, from doing this for so many years, and so that's why I have a massive collection. For me, massive is like, if I'm going to make a record, I have basically 20 basses in the room right now that I could go to, and I'll say, okay, I hear the song and I say, okay, I'll break it down to 5 of the 20. Then out of those 5, I start tracking with them like little sections and see, oh, that sounds no, and so on.
That's very interesting. That's cool on how you approach that. I also noticed something. Now, I don't know how long ago this started, this venture, but I did come across this bass, the Rudy Sarzo Sawtooth acoustic bass that
Oh
has
yeah,
a
yeah.
bass
Acoustic.
clef cut out in it. Tell me a
Mm.
little bit about that bass. Is that something that you designed with the company? How did that
Yeah,
happen?
yeah. Yeah. We sat down with the company and Sawtooth, which I've been working with them for almost 5 years now, and it's a design from the from one tip to the other, from from the from the guitar strap lock right here at the bottom
Uh,
to the top, right? Everything designed completely. And it's, as a matter of fact, it's an original mold when they send it over to the factory. A lot of times factories put together pieces from like all the instruments that they might be manufacturing, from their mold. But this is a complete redesigned, complete brand new mold. And I just wanted to create a bass that felt tension wise like an electric, because a lot of us, when we do certain tours, we do the in the middle, that acoustic section, and I found that, I mean, I have a few other acoustic basses, but that I've purchased or were actually given to me by companies years ago. So so I used those as a reference, and I said, well, this is what I don't like about these, and this is what I like about these, and we basically came up with that, with the fact that we wanted a bass that felt like an electric bass. So when you are playing electric for about half the set, you don't have to spend half the song trying to get your articulation to match what you had for the first half of the show, with a bass that feels completely different. It
yeah.
should feel like it's still a bass. It's still an electric bass. It's not a stand up. So we wanted to bring it as close as that as possible, and we did. We really nailed that. And we have the Fishman pickup that you get a really great tone. You're not gonna, again, sonically, there's not gonna be a drop in your tonality going from electric to acoustic. Just plug it in, and we wanted to get rid of the sound hole in the middle, because that's a big issue. When you're playing live, you might have a monitor facing you, and that's going to create feedback. So we wanted to like make a different aperture on the body, so that we came up with the F hole. And if since it's going to be electric, it really doesn't. I mean, it projects a lot forward, but we put the sound hole on top, so it actually acts like a monitor, so you can actually hear it as you're playing it.
Yeah, it's very interesting, man. I'm probably going to pick one up. I mean, I think it's reasonably priced also, man. So it's
Yeah,
inviting. It's very cool.
yeah.
And you should really be ecstatic about the fact that you've had so many companies produce Rudy Sarzo signature basses. I mean, your PV bass was awesome, the Rudy Sarzo
Yeah,
PV, and
yeah.
and also you're still working with Spectre, correct? So you still have,
Yes, I am.
yeah,
Yes, I
yeah.
am. They're building me a Coda. I love their Codas, even though I also play the NS shape, the Euros bases, and they're building me one passive.
Mm,
I don't think they've
okay.
ever built a passive bass before,
Wow.
and with the PJ configuration, which is
Okay.
what I really need, because I'm back with my old band Quiet Riot, which I've been a member of on and off since 1978. Sonically, there's a certain fundamental structure. We did a rehearsal, the first rehearsal. I brought a bunch of basses, all of them active. Didn't work. Didn't work. It might have worked for. See, since I've been doing this, playing with Quiet Riot on and off since 1978, I have old ears. I know how it should sound,
Mhm.
right? There's a
Yeah.
certain sound to that the songs, the recordings, everything was built around that. And the active basses just had too much in your face sound. And there's certain melodicism that dates back to the 70s style of playing. If you listen to 70s records, the bass sounded different, but so did the guitars sound different. in those recordings. The drums sounded different. Once we entered the 80s, we bass players, we suffered. We really did. We were not allowed to be melodic. Just keep it basically the blueprint was AC/DC, which is nothing wrong with that. If you're AC/DC, just don't try to make every other band sound like that, you know.
Yeah, one of my fun bass lines that I enjoy, very simple. All it is quarter notes, is The Zoo by the Scorpions, where
Oh yeah,
Francis is,
yeah,
he's going boom, boom, boom,
yeah,
boom,
yeah,
boom.
yeah, yeah. And I gotta tell you, there was a reason for bands to gravitate towards that style. In the 70s, rarely did rock bands, I mean, the average rock band, headline an arena. They were pretty much theaters. That's as big as you got. As a matter of fact, when I went out on tour with Ozzy in 1981 for the Blizzard of Oz tour, it was mainly theaters. Theaters. Immediately, you know, by the next tour, which happened the same year within months, we were headlining arenas. Everything changes. See, especially arenas in the 80s were sports, you know, event centers, and they were not designed acoustically for rock bands. So the bands that were actually the most successful ones were the ones that were actually play like AC/DC or the Scorpions, like you were talking about, or Motley Crue, Def Leppard, Quiet Riot. You know, it was designed sonically. And if you listen to a record, all those records, what they try to do is emulate that reverb that we had in the arena. Once you add reverb, you lose the punch of the bass guitar. That's what I like the first thing to go, you know. And so that's why we started putting in preamps in there just to like compensate for that, get some aggressions, get some cut. Well, it's like, to me, towards the 80s, the bass stopped sounding like a bass. Plus, we had to deal with the subsonic competition of the synthesized basses.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's say Quiet Riot, you know, we had singles, we got airplay, right? And by the way, I'm a founding member of the Metal Health version of Quiet Riot and the second bassist in the Randy Rhoads version of Quiet Riot. And by that I'm meaning that that's the band that I was not hired gun in, and I'm back in the band, and I'm still not a hired gun in the band. So but yes, I play with many bands that I've been a hired gun with, you know. And there's different dynamics and different things. So, you know, so my references are based on both. And so the instruments, this is what happened, to going back to the subsonics of the synthesized bass, and what we bass players had to match. Because what happens is, if you were like a band like I mentioned, Quiet Riot, we had singles, which meant that we had the radio programmer had to put our song next to it, Thompson Twins, or any of those
Michael
bands.
Jackson. Or Michael Jackson, right?
Yeah. With the bass synthesizer. And what happens is you have to create a playlist that there's a flow to it. So whoever's listening, and it's all about advertising. The reason why they want to keep you listening to the station is so you can hear the ads. That's how they make the money. They lose money when they play music because they have to pay sync rights, you know, for publishing and so on. so they if your music does not fit the playlist, they're going to put you at night, late at night, when nobody's really, you know, the advertising revenues are so slow that they'll play whatever. They don't care, you know, and they'll save the top 40 for the drive time, and, you know, when you get the most people tuning in, you know. So if we were compete sonically to match the bands that were on the top 10, that's where you really want to, that's where you get the most spins, right? The top 10. You have to, like, actually not only the producer, but the artist relation and the promo man will come to your recordings to make sure that the record sounds current. Current meaning, you know, sounds like a top 10 hit. whatever you're recording, because they can be placed in that slot right there. So they don't have a tough time with the station manager at the time that would dictate, no, I can't add this song to the playlist. And once he says that, the pocket opens up and money starts coming out to make sure that song does get added to the playlist. That's the way it was.
I got you. Now, it's interesting you're talking about Quiet Riot, because I do have a question about Quiet Riot in a moment. I'm going to ask you this next question, though, and then we've got one last question, I believe, after this. So here goes. You've played with some of the greatest guitarists and drummers in hard rock history. If you could put together your dream band, who would be in it? Is there anyone on your bucket list that you haven't yet had the opportunity to play with?
Yeah. I don't believe in dream bands because I could have never dreamed playing with Randy and Tommy.
Yeah.
That would have never,
That's the top.
my imagination is, that's it. I would have never dreamt that. And of course, Ozzy, I would have never really dreamt about the success that Quiet Riot had. It was like beyond my imagination. I would have never dreamt playing with Whitesnake, that configuration of the band, which was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Not only with Tommy again, but also, Vivian Campbell, Steve Vai, Adrian Vandenberg, of course, David Coverdale, and playing with Ronnie James Dio, the best of the
best. Yeah.
So if I dream, it would be probably below that.
Well, you've hit the upper echelon of these great artists, but in rock music. But I asked you that question to see if I can peek at you with maybe some jazz. Like, for instance, you brought up Jocko, and I was very, very interested that you knew who Jocko was, that you were there in his early days. I mean, so I thought maybe you might blow my mind and mention a couple of fusion or jazz artists that might have been on your bucket list. But that's cool. I get you. I understand what you're saying. I mean, Randy Rhoads, man. I mean, how much can you get over Randy Rhoads? I mean, that's incredible, The bass community knows your work with Ozzy, Whitesnake, and a handful of others, but you will always be remembered and endeared as the face of metal health when Quiet Riot ruled the heavy metal world. So how is it today returning to play with the band, especially without the late, great Frankie Banali?
Yeah, I mean, there's a specific purpose that no matter how anybody opinion about it, I mean, the opinion from others about what I do is none of my business, to be honest with you. And I don't take anything personally. I just know that when at a very early age I set out to accomplish what I have accomplished and beyond, trust me, it's stuff that I never even dreamt of, like we were talking about. I did not need anybody else's validation. None of us do. If we have to depend on other people's validation of what we must do from the heart, we never leave the house. It's like, forget about it. So I respect other people's thoughts and opinions, but that's not what drives me. What drives me is the pure faith and belief that there are certain things that I must do for others. Frankie requested that I return to Quiet Riot. Next year is going to be 50 years that I met and started playing with Frankie Banali. I have been playing with him 10 years on and off prior to us recording the Metal Health record. And it gives me joy and is an honor to be able to celebrate his memory, his music, his legacy, along with Kevin's and Randy Rhoads. members of Quiet Riot that are no longer with us. That's my purpose. And in addition to that, I'm going to have a great time revisiting music that I recorded and playing it as who I am today as a musician. So I find it not just challenging, but also very enlightening that I can bring the knowledge and of music that I have, my progression as a musician, and incorporate that to the music that I've already recorded. It's kind of like, okay, we're talking about jazz. That's at the core of jazz. That's the whole spirit. Miles Davis, Coltrane, they never played the song exactly the same way as they recorded it. That was just like a picture. Imagine if you and I, we take a photo and now we have to go through life looking exactly with the same expression as we had in the photo, through our life, because we capture that moment. Well, that's what you're doing with a recording. Not only are you capturing a moment as a performer, you're capturing an opinion. That's why, when you go live and you make a live record, people go, "Oh, I like that live record even better than the studio." Yeah, one of the main things is that you don't have a producer, an engineer, a record company, or executive over your shoulder saying, "Now play it this way." Now you're going to play the way that really comes from the heart. And once it comes from the heart, people get it. They go, "Oh, this is the real deal. This is the way the song should have been recorded," right? Some of the greatest records, let's say Led Zeppelin 1 and 2, whatever, all those records, it's Jimmy Page. He produces. Those songs were cut live in the studio. That's the band. And it resonates with the listener through space and time.
I am very excited to see you perform with Quiet Riot. I'm going to make it a point. When you come into this area, you might be playing the M3 Festival next year. I'm not sure. I don't know I haven't checked your calendar yet, but I'm going to make it a point because you're the founding member and the spirit of Rudy Sarzo, along with the DNA of Randy Rhoads, the spirit of Randy Rhoads, and Frankie will be part of the presentation. You cannot escape it. You can't escape that. Their spirits will be on the stage with you. You can't get away with that. I'm looking forward to that. So last thing, I'm going to have a little fun with you. And you know what? Just getting to know you and hearing how you express yourself and your vision and your thoughts about music. I'm not sure if you're going to have as much fun with this one, but I'm going to try it anyway. Okay. I would like you, in your honest gut opinion, to rank these albums from 1 to 5, with 1 being your favorite, and tell us a bit about why you chose this top pick. So here we go. I'm going to give them, and you can tell me what you think you love in order, or maybe you don't. Maybe you can't even put them in order, but we'll find out. Okay. First one is "Speak of the Devil," Ozzy Osbourne. The second one is "Condition Critical," Quiet Riot. The third one is Ozzy Live, Disc 2 of the Diary of a Madman Legacy, which I didn't know to choose that one or the tribute with the Randy Rhoads live versions, and also 2 other ones: Whitesnake, "Slip of the Tongue," which is a phenomenal record, and last but not least, Holy Diver Live with the greatest male rock vocalist of all time, Ronnie James Dio.
Wow.
What do you think of that?
See, if you would have mentioned Mental Health, that would have been number 1. That would have made it very easy.
Hold on. Rudy. I wanted so much to mention it because to me, you're the face of Mental Health, man. But I didn't know how you felt because you didn't play all over that album, right? Chuck was the one who played the bass lines on that album, right? Is that correct?
Do you have the album cover with you?
No, I don't have it with me.
Okay.
No.
Well, okay. I want to tell you what it says on the album cover. Okay. Album cover on the back, it says "additional musicians," right?
Yeah.
Okay. It says Chuck Wright performed two songs, the track Metal Hell and Don't Want to Let You Go. One of the things that besides Chuck, because I wasn't even in the band, I hadn't even gone in the studio yet. I played on the rest of the record.
Oh, okay.
It's right there since day one, the proper credit of who played on what, since day one, since the first print of that record. How is there a confusion about something that is so clearly stated? It's not, you don't even have to buy the record. You don't even have to look inside. It's on the back cover of it.
Well, hey, excuse my inequity, because that kind of stuff I'm usually up on top of. So I made a mistake, and I'm not on top of it. But okay, so if I remember correctly, it's been a long time since I read the liner notes. But I'll change Condition Critical. I put Condition Critical only because I know that you played on every song on Condition Criticals. But I'll change it to Metal Health.
Actually, Chuck plays on Born to Rock, and there's a story behind as to why, and we just leave it at that. Okay. So Metal Health. Okay, the story of Metal Health was that after Randy left the band Quiet Riot and went on to play with Ozzy, Quiet Riot ceased to exist as a brand, as a band. So what happened was Kevin started his own band called Dubrow. He named it Dubrow because the state of the music industry at the time was that labels were more interested in punk and new wave. So all of us rock musicians living in Los Angeles, and I can give you an example. You were talking about the guys from Motley who had a band called London at the time. You have Mickey Rath, you have Dokken, you have Great White under a different name. All of us were all struggling to survive. So we would interchange players, because they became gigs. It was like, it's everybody is in at least three different bands, right? Just to survive, because you move to Hollywood to make a living as a musician, not as a top 40 musician or anything else. It was all about that. Okay, so there was a lot of sacrifices and a lot of struggling going on. Okay, so Kevin understood that, and he said, "Okay, I'm gonna name the band after me." So there's always a constant. Me, I will always be in the band, the bro. No matter who's playing drums, who's playing bass, who's playing guitar, And he used that period to write what was mostly the Metal Health record, with few exceptions, but the bulk of it was there. Okay, and the direction of the sound that was transforming from what Quiet Riot was in the 70s, which was more of that glam rock, glam metal, more to what became the 80s style of playing, which was again influenced by AC/DC. I was touring with Def Leppard. I knew that they were going to be big. I didn't realize how big they were going to be because at that time that I was touring with them in 1981, MTV was not the staple that it became, and that changed everything for everybody. So Kevin had this band, Dubrow, and I was a member of Dubrow for about 6 to 8 months before I joined Ozzy. I moved in with Kevin. I was living with him, and up until I got the call to join the band, and then immediately that day I moved in with Ozzy and Sharon up in their family estate up in the Hollywood Hills, and so there was this period where Kevin would go in the studio and make demos and so on. Now, while I was playing with him, he wrote a song called Thunderbird for Randy. When Randy left the band to join Ozzy, then I joined Ozzy and Kevin. I came up with the Thunderbird bass line and recorded. That later on I recorded that for the record. So I joined Ozzy. We're going tour. Randy passes away, and I lost my family. If you look at that version of the band, there's Ozzy in the middle with two guys from Quiet Riot inside, and that was my connection to what I was doing in that band. Randy, he mentored me how to be a member of Ozzy because he already been through that about a year and a half before I joined the band. So he understood. He explained. He made it possible for me not to just like go nuts with all
Yeah.
the unusual stuff that was going around. I mean, wonderful people. I have wonderful memories of those years. But I was very green. I went from being a bass player on the Sunset Strip, never been on tour, on a major tour with a recording international act, to doing that with Ozzy. So I Randy passes away, and I get a call in one of my breaks from the tour with Ozzy by Kevin. It says, "Hey man, I'm working on some on a possible record here, and to be released as a later date. And how would you like to come down and play on Thunderbird?" So I brought my Roland bass synthesizer, which was my practice bass. All my gear was on the road with Ozzy, right? And I walk in the studio, and here's Frankie Banali, who 10 years before, almost to the day, that's when we met. And I have been playing with him on and off, family, his family, collective consciousness. These are the people that you put your bands together with. You feel the same thing about music completely. You listen to the same thing. You might turn each other on to different things, but they're connected.
Yeah.
Like if you listen to Weather Report, oh yeah, there's a Return to Forever. Oh wow, check this out. Those very few degrees of separation musically. And I recorded Thunderbird. I knew it. I have been playing it with Kevin. So we went in and we did a couple of takes. We did that. And then there was like a couple of hours left on the session. And so the producer and the guys asked me, "Hey, do you remember Slick Black Cadillac?" "Yeah, can we go over it once?" So, I haven't played that in almost 2 years. So by the time I left the session, I had recorded at least 4 songs. Now, Chuck was not around because that same day they tracked Come and Feel the Noise. They tracked it. And the guy that walked in to play the bass on that was Tony Cavasso, Carlos's brother.
Oh.
Yeah. So this is the sequence of events. The 2 songs, Mental Health, which originally titled No More Booze, and Don't Want to Let You Go, were actually Snow songs that Carlos brought in from his band Snow. So I did not get to record on those 2. So to me, chronologically, it makes sense because I never really asked, because shortly, I mean, within a week after I did that session with Thunderbird originally and worked out recording 4 songs, shortly after that, within a week, I had left. I actually went in to record "Speak of the Devil" with Ozzy live at the Ritz. So those 2 records I was recording simultaneously, while I was still a member of Ozzy, not knowing that I was going to leave Ozzy, but it became very clear that what I was looking for was to get my, a sense of family back in my life, was there, with Kevin and Frankie, even though I was leaving one of the biggest bands in the world for the complete unknown. And trust me, Quiet Riot at the time was not, nobody gave us a chance that we were ever going to even sell 50,000 records. So.
But it was one of my favorite bands that you played in. I mean, that moment in the 80s, that was a great, great moment. I mean, you were everywhere.
It's the only band that I've ever felt that I could really be 100% myself. Because when you're a founding member of something, it's you build your own identity musically.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I understand that. Yeah. And you never feel like you're a second fiddle or that your opinions don't matter. You don't come late to the party. You're in the beginning of the process of the birth of the band. So you're there, Yeah.
Exactly.
So I'm going to assume now, I gave you those 5 titles. I'm going to assume that Mental Health is number 1 for you. And then I'm going to assume that Whitesnake is somewhere in the top three.
I would go Speak of the Devil, and they coincide one with the other. They were recorded like within weeks from each other. It was a period in my life that it was a transitional period. And I gotta tell you, Brad Gillis did a hell of a job. We only had 5 days to rehearse that record, 5 days, and Ozzy rarely would show up. So these are pretty intricate songs, especially since I was not really familiar with the Black Sabbath music. You know, I gotta tell you, by the time that those records came out, I wasn't even buying rock records anymore because disco came in.
Yeah.
You know, and also growing up as a starving musician, if there was a choice of a Led Zeppelin record, a Yes record, or Mahavishnu Orchestra record, Black Sabbath would kind of like, but have money to buy one record a month, if that,
Yeah, Mahavishnu, Birds of Fire is a great
Birds
album.
of Fire. Well, actually, Inner Mountain Flame was my entry into that.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, yeah. I dug Rick Laird. He put out an ad in the Village Voice in the 70s about teaching, and I called him up, and I was going to go take lessons from him, but I changed my mind. I started taking lessons with this guy by the name of Ken Smith. So this was 1978. And then I went to California in 79. I went to BIT, and I studied off of Hollywood Boulevard. I lived on North Sycamore and Hollywood Boulevard over there. So I remember I was close to you. We missed each other, but I was close, But anyway, look, I want to thank you for your time today, Rudy. Man, I'm blown away with your knowledge and also how you feel and express yourself verbally about the music that you've been part of all of these years, man. And you've left quite an imprint for many of us, man. And I just want to let you know that there are many of us that really, really have a lot of love and respect for you, Rudy. Just want you to know that in case you don't know that.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And can I just parting words?
Sure.
You mentioned about my knowledge. Well, my knowledge is the same knowledge that is available to everybody. And I just urge everybody to absorb as much knowledge as possible. Keep in mind we only got 12 notes. The same 12 notes that are on Smoke of the Water are in Beethoven's Fifth.
I know.
It's your choice,
It's like building blocks. You choose them in what succession, right? Whatever succession, and you make magic. You know.
I mean, I love looking at the fretboard, and I look at it and go, every song ever written, and that will be written, is in here. Yeah. So you have to just find them.
Yeah, that's a beautiful Rick. What year is that Rick?
Oh, it's a new one. It's a new Rick.
It's a new one. Looks great.
Yeah, it's what happened. I told my wife, you know what? I want to get a Rick because I've had Ricks before, and I'm at the point in my life that I can use one, whenever needed for a certain project,
Yes.
And so she goes, well, this time get a blue one. you have too many black ones and white ones and sunbursts and red ones. Just get a blue one this time, And so I said, okay. And then so I went on a search, and the only place that I could find it was a Guitar Center, which is, I usually go to Sweetwater, but Sweetwater didn't have a blue one because they don't make this finish. It's like a midnight blue anymore. Yeah, that's the factory. They didn't have it neither.
Yeah, that's a different color than Getty's. Getty's had a He had a darker. I think it was a darker blue, or like a black or blue. If I don't remember. Yeah. It's been a while. It's been a while.
Yeah, I wasn't going after anything Getty at the time. I do have a Made in Mexico Getty that is just phenomenal. That one I picked up at Sweetwater. Actually, I was actually in Fort Wayne performing, and I went to the store. I was blown away by the whole facility, and I handpicked that one. Yeah.
So listen, it's been a great, great time. And please think about me when you're coming to the Washington, D.C. area. I would love to come and visit you and hang out with you, buy you a drink or buy you dinner or something. Okay, it'll be awesome.
Buy me coffee, coffee and a muffin.
No problem, man. It'll be a pleasure. Thank you for
Okay.
spending your time with me today,
That's it.
and I'm
God
very
bless.
thankful. God bless you, brother. Take care.
God bless you too, Christian. God bless.
Bye
Bye-bye.
bye. Bye.
If you enjoyed this educational music program, please subscribe to We Sing the Bass Electric on your favorite podcast platform. We would love your feedback. Email us at WeSingTheBassElectric@gmail.com. For bonus material and a chance to win merchandise, such as autographed CDs and more, subscribe to our YouTube channel and join our mailing list at WeSingTheBassElectric.com. As always, thank you for your support. And please buy music from these spotlighted artists. It makes a difference.